Have you ever poured your heart out to someone you've been obsessing over for months, only to watch them laugh in your face like you just told them the world's worst joke? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And what I discovered in that moment of complete humiliation changed everything I thought I knew about myself, about women, and about why being nice was actually the cruelest thing I could do to both of us. Here's the brutal truth. 3 years. 3 entire years of my life wasted orbiting around Maris like some pathetic satellite. 3 years of being her emotional tampon, her free therapist, her convenient shoulder to cry on whenever another guy broke her heart. And there I was, standing in her apartment at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night, shaking like a leaf, finally working up the courage to tell her I loved her. You know what she did? She threw her head back and laughed. Not a nervous giggle. Not an uncomfortable chuckle. A full-blown, tears in her eyes laugh, like I had just told her the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. "Oh my God, you're serious?" she said, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry, I never saw you that way. You're like my gay best friend, but straight." Let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment of pure devastation. Because if you've ever been the guy who gets called sweet, but never sexy, who gets told, "You're such a good friend," while watching her chase after guys who treat her like garbage, then you'll understand exactly how I ended up there. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that I was the textbook definition of Mr. Nice Guy. And I thought that was a good thing. I thought being nice, being available, being the perfect gentleman was my ticket to love. I was dead wrong. It all started in college. Maris was in my psychology class, beautiful, intelligent, with this laugh that could light up a room. But here's where my nice guy programming kicked in. Instead of asking her out like a normal person, I decided to become her friend first. You know, build a foundation. Take it slow. Show her what a great guy I was. What I actually did was sign up for 3 years of voluntary torture. I became her unpaid therapist. Every time she had boyfriend problems, and trust me, there were a lot of them. Guess who she called? Me. Every time she needed someone to drive her to the airport, help her move, or just listen to her vent about her day. Me again. And I told myself this was progress. This was how you win a woman's heart. By being indispensable. By being the nice guy who was always there. But here's what I didn't realize. I wasn't building attraction. I was building resentment. Not from her, from myself. Because deep down, I wasn't being nice out of genuine kindness. I was being nice because I thought it would get me something in return. I was a covert contract writer, and I didn't even know it. But the night everything changed, the night she laughed at me, there was something else that happened. Something I haven't told you yet. Something that made me realize I had become the villain in my own story. But first, you need to understand just how deep this rabbit hole went. For 2.5 years, I watched Maris date a parade of guys who didn't deserve her. At least, that's what I told myself. There was Jake, the guy who cheated on her with her roommate. There was Marcus, who would disappear for days without texting back. And there was Tyler, who she caught flirting with other girls right in front of her. Each time, I was there to pick up the pieces. Each time, I thought, this is it. This is when she realizes what she has right in front of her. I remember one particularly pathetic night when she called me crying at 2 a.m. because Tyler had ghosted her after she slept with him. I drove across town in my pajamas to bring her ice cream and tissues. We sat on her couch. She cried on my shoulder, and I held her while she said things like, "Why can't I find a guy like you who actually cares about me?" A guy like me? I was right there. But somehow, I was invisible as a romantic option. The worst part? I started to hate the guy she dated. I'd sit there listening to her complain about them, thinking, I would never treat you like that. I would worship the ground you walk on. But that wasn't love, that was possession disguised as devotion. The breaking point came 6 months before that terrible night. Maris started dating this guy named Connor. He was everything I wasn't, confident, somewhat arrogant, had this way of teasing her that made her giggle like a schoolgirl. And for the first time in our friendship, she stopped calling me every day. I was losing my position as her emotional support animal, and I panicked. I started showing up at her apartment unannounced. I'd text her constantly, just checking in, saw this and thought of you. Wanted to make sure you're okay. I bought her expensive gifts for no reason. When she mentioned she liked a certain author, I bought her the entire collection. I was suffocating her, and I called it love. Looking back now, I can see exactly what I was doing. I was trying to nice guy my way into her pants. Every favor, every late-night emotional support session, every gift, they were all deposits in what I thought was some kind of relationship bank account. I believed that if I just accumulated enough nice guy points, she'd eventually sleep with me. But women aren't slot machines. Kindness isn't currency you can exchange for sex and love. The Connor relationship lasted about 4 months, and when it ended, I thought I was back in the game. She started calling me again, crying about how he was emotionally unavailable and how she just wanted someone who truly cared about her. This was my moment. This was when I decided to finally tell her how I felt. But here's what I discovered that night. Here's the thing I haven't told you yet that changed everything. Right before I confessed my feelings, I found something that made me realize I wasn't the nice guy I thought I was. I was actually the villain of this story. What I found in her apartment that night revealed the truth about who I really was. And when I realized it, everything made sense. Why she laughed. Why she could never see me as more than a friend. Why I had become the very thing I claimed to hate. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you the full picture of that night. I had spent weeks psyching myself up for this moment. I practiced my speech in the mirror. I wrote down what I was going to say. I even bought her flowers, sunflowers, because I remembered her mentioning once that they were her favorite. I showed up at her apartment around 9 p.m. with sweaty palms and a racing heart. She answered the door in her pajamas, looking comfortable and relaxed. "Hey, what's up?" she said, like it was perfectly normal for me to show up unannounced with flowers. We sat on her couch, and I could barely concentrate on the conversation because I was so nervous about what I was planning to do. She was telling me about her day, about work, about some drama with her sister. And I was just nodding along, waiting for the perfect moment. But as I sat there, pretending to listen while planning my romantic ambush, I noticed something on her coffee table that made my blood run cold. There was a journal, left open, and I could see my name written on the page. Now, I know I shouldn't have looked. I know it was a violation of her privacy, but I couldn't help myself. And what I read in those few seconds before she noticed and quickly closed it changed everything. She had written, "I'm starting to feel suffocated by Harry. He's always around, always trying to fix my problems, always acting like he knows what's best for me. I can feel his neediness, and it's honestly kind of creepy. I care about him as a friend, but the way he looks at me sometimes, like he's waiting for something, it makes me uncomfortable. I wish I could tell him, but I don't want to hurt his feelings." In that moment, I realized I wasn't the nice guy. I was the creep. The guy who hung around pretending to be a friend while secretly harboring an agenda. The guy who made women feel guilty for not returning feelings they never asked for. But by then, it was too late. I had already committed to telling her how I felt. My pride, my desperation, my 3 years of investment. It all came crashing together in one terrible moment of poor decision-making. So I gave her the flowers. I told her I loved her. I laid out 3 years' worth of pent-up feelings and secret fantasies about our future together. And she laughed. Not because she was cruel. Not because she wanted to hurt me. She laughed because the idea of us together was so absurd to her that it caught her completely off guard. To her, I was the safe, neutered friend who she could complain to about real men. The idea that I saw myself as a potential romantic partner was genuinely funny to her. "You're like my gay best friend, but straight," she said. That's when I knew. I had spent 3 years making myself sexually invisible to the woman I claimed to love. I left her apartment that night feeling like my entire identity had been shattered. I was angry. At her, at myself, at the universe. I felt like I had been lied to my entire life about how attraction worked. But over the next few weeks, as the humiliation faded, something else emerged. Clarity. I started to see all the ways I had been manipulative without realizing it. How I had been trying to negotiate attraction instead of creating it. How I had been so focused on being safe and nice that I had forgotten to be. I realized that I had never actually gotten to know Maris as a person. I had fallen in love with my idealized version of her, with the fantasy of what our relationship could be. I had never seen her flaws, never challenged her, never treated her like an equal human being with agency and preferences. I had treated her like a prize to be won rather than a person to connect with. The next few months were rough. I had to completely rebuild my understanding of myself and what it meant to be a man. I had to learn the difference between being nice and being kind, between being helpful and being a doormat, between showing interest and being needy. Most importantly, I had to learn that attraction isn't something you earn through good behavior. It's something you create through confidence, authenticity, and yes, sometimes a little bit of challenge and unpredictability. 6 months later, I ran into Maris at a coffee shop. But I was different. I had been working on myself, not to win her back, but to become the kind of man I actually wanted to be. When she saw me, her eyes widened. "Wow, you look different," she said. I was different. I had lost weight, started dressing better, but more than that, I carried myself differently. I wasn't the eager, approval-seeking guy she remembered. I was calm, centered, and most importantly, I wasn't looking at her like she held the key to my happiness. We chatted for a few minutes, and for the first time in our entire friendship, I could see something different in her eyes. Not love, that ship had sailed, but respect. Maybe even a little curiosity about who I had become. But here's the beautiful irony. I didn't want her anymore. Because I had learned something crucial about attraction and relationships that completely changed my dating life forever. What I learned is this: the nice guys finish last isn't actually about being nice. It's about being inauthentic. It's about using niceness as a strategy instead of expressing genuine care. It's about trying to earn love instead of attracting it. Real attraction happens when you're confident enough to be yourself, secure enough to have boundaries, and strong enough to walk away if someone doesn't appreciate what you bring to the table. The guys Maris dated weren't successful because they were jerks. They were successful because they were unapologetically themselves. They didn't hide their desires or pretend to be something they weren't. They created tension, excitement, and yes, sometimes a little bit of uncertainty. They understood something I didn't. Women don't want to be worshipped. They want to be wanted by someone they respect. Today, I'm in a relationship with an amazing woman who chose me not because I was nice to her, but because she was genuinely attracted to who I am. We have the kind of relationship I used to fantasize about with Maris, except it's real, it's mutual, and it's built on authentic connection rather than covert contracts and hidden agendas. Maris and I, we're actually friends now. Real friends. Because I finally learned how to care about someone without wanting something in return. The guy who got laughed at that night, he had to die for the real me to be born. And I'm grateful for that humiliation, because it forced me to confront the uncomfortable truth about who I really was. If you're watching this and seeing yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not doomed to the friend zone. But you are living a lie, and that lie is killing your chances with women before you even get started. The transformation I went through didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. I had to learn specific techniques, specific mindsets, and specific ways of interacting with women that completely changed how they saw me. If you're tired of being the nice guy who never gets chosen, if you're ready to stop orbiting around women hoping they'll eventually notice you, then I want to share something with you that changed everything for me. It's called How I Finally Stopped Being the Friend Zone Guy Without Changing My Personality. With one simple move, you can. Stop losing women that initially liked you because you couldn't play the game. Re-enter the dating scene with confidence at any age. Pass each and every one of women's secret tests. Unlock the Scrambler is the only system that combines eliminating the nice guy behavior ingrained in so many men with the most cutting-edge discoveries of modern psychology. So you can gain the attraction of women, project personal power, and avoid the "let's just be friends" speech for good. The link is in the description below. Don't let another woman laugh at your feelings because you never learned how attraction really works. Stop being the nice guy. Start being the right guy.